Hello, everyone. Pastor George here with today's Bible study recap. And today in Bible study, we looked at Psalm 19. We're still going through the Psalms, and this week we tackled wisdom Psalms. Now, the most famous one is probably the first one in the book of Psalms. That's a wisdom Psalm, but I wanted to do one that isn't talked about as much, but is quoted pretty often. I feel like I hear this one quoted weekly, and maybe depending on what church you go to, if it's not ours, you do. One of the most common things people say is the very end of this, especially pastors right before they're about to start preaching. What they'll say is, "Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in your sight, my Lord, my rock, and my Redeemer." Right? That's Psalm 19, verse 14. That's how the psalm ends. So what are wisdom psalms? That's the first thing we should discuss. So wisdom psalms are psalms that borrow or touch on a lot of the themes of wisdom literature. So wisdom literature is songs like, it is, I guess it is kind of a poetry psalm, like Ecclesiastes, Job, Proverbs, right? Stuff that has to deal with like advice or the way of the righteous versus the way of the wicked, just blunt facts about life, things like that. That's wisdom literature, and you see that in the Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and Job. But it's also in the Psalms. One could even say that the book of James in the New Testament has been convincingly argued to be kind of in the same vein, written with the same kind of intention as wisdom literature in the Old Testament. And so Psalms of wisdom are treating very much the same type of themes, right? And you'll see that if you read Psalm 19, you see it all over the place there, especially when it comes to talking about the law and stuff. So this is a psalm about Revelation, and I do not mean the final book of the New Testament. When I talk about Revelation, it's how God reveals himself. And so traditionally in theology, we have two types of revelation. The first is general revelation. General revelation is the revelation that is accessible and open to everyone, which is generally believed to be nature or kind of the conscience. Paul appeals to this sort of argument a little in the book of Romans and in some other places. And then there's the second type is special revelation. Special revelation is where you are given something by God in order to tell you about himself. And so this is scripture, right? This is what this psalm identifies as the law, as scripture, right? So that's special revelation that was given to one people, but even though there's that, there's also general revelation. This is why Paul can say, people can deny God or will tell falsehoods to themselves in order to not have to believe, right? So if you just look at Psalm 19, you're going to see it broken up into those two sections, basically. General revelation and special revelation, talking about God and praising him, but also just about how nature itself is reveals itself to God, how God reveals himself in the law, and then humanity's response to that. So you'll see a lot of this, right? I mean, even the first line is something that a lot of people will say, right? The heavens declare the glory of the Lord, and the skies above proclaim his handiwork. And you'll see that creation speaks about God, right? It has things to say. The sun is personified, right? That means it's kind of treated like a person. Where he says he's like a strong man who runs its course with joy. Of course, unlike many other ancient cultures, the Hebrews or the writers of these texts, at least, right, did not believe that the sun was an actual god in the way that it was often treated in many other cultures. But it is following an appointed course by God. And so the sun, right, just in what it does every day, shows the order of the universe given by God. And even then, it serves as just a kind of a stand-in for the rays and the light of God, right? That's what it says there at its end, right? Just like the sun is like this, nothing can be hidden from its heat. So God is like that, right? God, nothing can hide from God. So we have that as a first part. That's general revelation, right? Everyone can understand that. I'm sure the writer would even say, even pagans understand this with their worship of the sun, right? They at least understand that there's something divine out there. There's just this it's clear that there is, right? But then it moves into special revelation, and this is the special revelation given by God to his people Israel, and this is the law, right? The Torah is what the text says. So it says that right in verse 7. As soon as it's done talking about the Son, it says the law of the Lord is perfect, reviving the soul. The testimony of the Lord is sure, making wise the simple. And this is really wisdom. This is why we can say it's wisdom literature. You're going to find stuff like that all over Proverbs and in other wisdom psalms and in Job and Ecclesiastes, right? You're going to have ideas about that in there. The precepts of the Lord are right, rejoicing the heart. The commandment of the Lord is pure, enlightening the eyes. The fear of the Lord is clean, enduring forever. Something to note here, right, is that wisdom is not intelligence. Oftentimes in our culture, we can think that it is, right? We conflate those two. We think, oh, intelligence is wisdom, but that's actually not true, right? The simple can be wise. The opposite of the wise is the fool, right? And in wisdom literature, the fool says in his heart there is no God. Now, it's not commenting on intelligence. It's making a religious connotation, right? A wise person understands certain moral precepts, understands certain truths about the universe, while a fool doesn't. A wise person can not be the smartest person in the room, and the fool can be, but it's the way that they understand what's going on. That's really what wisdom is about, is understanding, right? Intelligence is knowing kind of like just basic root facts and being able to hold on to a lot. Wisdom is the application of those things. And so the simple can be wise, and the intelligent can be fools. It's a very important thing to understand about the Bible. Oftentimes people will either they're atheists or use it against atheists that say the fool says in their heart there is no God. That's actually not commenting on intelligence, even though that's how we often think about fools. It's really commenting on a moral standing, right? And that would be true, right? I mean, people who deny the existence of God, I'm not saying this inherently about them, but it leaves open possibilities which humans have very much taken advantage of, and this seems to be kind of recognized in nearly all cultures, I would say, that once the divine is gone, then you are the divine, and you rule, and that often leads to bad things, right? So it's just commenting on that. And so here it praises the law, talks about how good it is, and of course this is important for lots of reasons, but for the psalmist, this is actually important for understanding how he has failed here, right? Who can discern his errors? Declare me innocent from hidden faults. Keep back your servant also from presumptuous sins. Let them not have dominion over me. Then I shall be blameless and innocent of great transgression. So here, right, the psalmist is saying, listen, I sin too, but God, please forgive me for the things that I do, right? And you can, again, see the foreshadowing of what's going to come later in the New Testament. And then, of course, we have the final, let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer. Something just to note there is meditation. We're not thinking of like Buddhist meditation where you're sitting in chanting or in silence, right? That's kind of our stereotypical view of meditation. But when the Bible talks about meditation, it means thinking on the things that you're reading and actually saying them out loud, which is why you see a connection between mouth and heart, right? You're supposed to actually sometimes people would say mumble them, but kind of do it with a low intonation. This is how they would do this back then. I'm not saying that's how you need to meditate. I'm just saying it's not just sitting back and thinking about something. It's active kind of participation in reading the law, the thing that God has given you, right? So that's what we talked about today. We are going to end with our Psalm series next week as we talk about Psalms of comfort and look at the most famous Psalm of comfort, Psalm 23. So I'll see you guys tomorrow for an episode of A New Thing. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your Wednesday. Peace out.